Beyond the Forbidden.
Welcome to Beyond the Forbidden. Today on the show, I got a friend of mine, Grant Cameron. I first interviewed him at the Ozark UFO conference. I think it was 2017 or 18. I'm not sure what year it was. I think it was 17, the year before the December 2017 release. But Grant Cameron, welcome to Beyond Forbidden. How you been, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So what was your initial thoughts, with the go and jump straight into it? I don't think you need much of an introduction, but I will give all the links in the description for everybody to check out. But what was your initial thoughts on the recent 2024 AARO release?
It didn't really surprise me. I think people have walked themselves into this. They sort of confused, I think, Santa Claus and ufology. Basically, I've done 4 books. I have 2 more books coming out on disclosure, but I hate the disclosure topic because it's gone around for 50 years. I've been doing this. So let's sort of spell it out here. The whole thing goes back to understanding how security works. So people figure because they pay taxes, they have the right to know this. And the bottom line is you don't have the right to know. You don't have a right to know the launch codes. You don't have the right to know how many nukes there are on the submarines, how many submarines there are, and stuff like that. And people have got it sort of confused. And basically, I go back to, in my experience, I talked to some of the highest. I was thinking about this last night. I've talked to some of the highest level people that have dealt with this subject. I talked to the Vice President of the United States on this subject. I asked him the question. That was Dick Cheney, and I said to him the question, Mr. Cheney, because he was chief of staff for Ford. He was Secretary of Defense under Bush, and he was also the vice president when I talked to him. I said, in all your jobs in government, over the 3 major jobs you've had, have you ever been briefed on the subject of UFOs? If so, when was it and what were you told? And that's the whole idea. Is the briefing is the story. They'll sit down, and if you're got a need to know, they'll sit down and tell you what's going on. So he said, if I had been briefed on that subject, it would probably be classified and I wouldn't be talking about it. And that comes down to this idea about need to know. So a lot of people figure that they have a need to know. The other high level guy I talked to was a guy by the name of Dr. Eric Walker. I wrote a book, UFOs, Area 51 and Government Informants, about Dr. Walker. And there was head of a team of about 8 people who were trying to get him to talk. This is a guy from 1947 on, knew all the MJ-12 players. He knew what was going on. He seemed to be part of the cover-up. He knew exactly how it had taken place. And what he said to us is, why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? That's what he said. And this is the whole idea, is they don't care. You don't need to know. And people have bought into this, because what's happened is the United States of America is a very militaristic country. So you have $900 billion defense budget. And people have bought into that. They say, oh, we got this defense. We need this defense. There's all these bad people out there. But you can't have it both ways. You can't have a $900 billion defense budget and then say, oh, we want to know all the military secrets. When you got that much of a defense budget, that's total fear. That's guns and everybody's an enemy and we don't trust anybody. And so that's what's happened, is that you have a situation where the military is running the show. And the way security works is, in 1942, it all started with Roosevelt. So they were building the atomic bomb. And before then, there was no security. There was no top secret, confidential, code words, black ops. There was none of that kind of stuff. But when they built the atomic bomb, they wanted to keep it completely secret. So that's when he brought in confidential and secret. Then it came to Truman, and Truman brought in the classification of top secret. Then they added the code words. And it's all done through the President of the United States. So this has all been built up. And what has happened is that the government has built a situation in which they've sort of lost control of the whole program. And what's happened is that, for example, I'll say to people, they'll say, so they have to give back the ships. They've got these ships as if they stole these crafts that they've got. And I ask people, like, where did they get the crafts from? And people say, oh, they got, the companies have got teams that recover them. And I go, get out of here. The government gave them the crafts. It gave them the hardware. Because if you realize how the government works, the government doesn't do anything. Half the military, for example, is contracted out. You got all these different food service. The government doesn't run the food service; it's run by a contractor. And so what you do is, because you're the government, if you're this president of the United States, you don't know how to build a flying saucer, and neither does anybody else in the Defense Department. So what you do is you contract it out to a contractor who knows that kind of stuff, and you give them the deal and you give them the stuff, and the person tries to figure it out and then produces a report for you. Now, Eric Walker was he was former president of Penn State University. He had 14 honorary doctorate degrees. He also was the chairman of the board of the Institute for Defense Analysis when we talked to him. That's the top military think tank in the United States. And that's where DARPA comes from. All your military contracts for black ops go through DARPA. And we wrote about DARPA back in 1990 already in this book, UFOs, Area 51 and Government Informants. We wrote about it and we said, then the Jasons were this elite group of physicists that they call in to solve very complex problems. But DARPA, the reason DARPA was built, it's the same thing as this $900 billion defense industry. And what it is that the reason DARPA was formed in I think 1957 is because of Sputnik. The Russians got the first thing into space, and everybody went, what the hell's going on? I thought we were leading the race here. And they realized that they had been had. And then the Russians put the first man into outer space. And the Americans were behind. And that's why they created DARPA. DARPA it's never going to happen again. Nobody is ever going to bring up technology that we have not seen. Because there was totally embarrassment by the fact that the Russians put the first thing into space. So that's what DARPA is. And DARPA runs the black budget program. So if you take a look at the Schumer amendment that was passed, and this is where it all fell apart. So Schumer and Rounds put this thing together. And you have a situation in the United States now where one or two guys can block everything. So that's what's happened at the border. The border issue has been blocked. You've got the Ukraine funding has been blocked, and the UFO thing was blocked. And basically, what it came down to is that people say, "Well, it's not fair." I say, "Here's the situation: forget about the conspiracy, forget about the Illuminati and all that nonsense. If the Democrats had won 6 more seats in the House, we wouldn't be having this discussion today. The Schumer amendment would have gone through with nobody touching it. There would have been a panel of 9 people under the president of the United States. They would have had subpoena power to bring in anybody they want and force them to testify. They would have forced the contractors to turn over have eminent domain over all the material, hand all the material back. All the records would have been produced, but because they didn't, that 2 guys, head of the Armed Services and the head of the Intelligence Committee in the House, said, we're going to kill it. And they killed it. End of story.
Do you want to help support Beyond Forbidden and receive extra content that's not seen anywhere else? By becoming a patron, a few things you will receive are the full-length 90-minute or 120-minute podcast episode. Members will also receive a private link to the video podcast and will only be exclusive to Patreon members. In-person, face-to-face interviews with some of the most well-known, respected researchers. Behind-the-scenes footage of interviews not seen anywhere else. And that's just a few perks. So what do you have to lose? Cut out one brain-rotting, overly processed Happy Meal a month that doesn't do anything beneficial for your mind, body, and spirit, and become a Patreon for just $5.
So that's what's basically happened. So people can complain about whoever they want, the Illuminati or the mother-in-law or the dog ate the homework, whatever they want. It's basically we've walked ourselves in, and it's actually worse now than it was before. Because what happened with the Schumer amendment is that it has to be signed by the House, the Senate, and the president. So what happened is they had this watered down bill, which basically says effectively that they can keep the material. We can't subpoena them, and we're just going to have some records go to the archives. That's basically it. Now that's been signed into law because it was signed by the House and the Senate and the president. And therefore, it's law. This is the way it's going to be, whether you like it or not. This is the law of the country. And you even had the thing where when it went to the president said, "Yes, I understand the obligation of the executive to brief the Congress, but if you read it, he said there's national security issues." And basically that's what it comes down to, is the idea that we're not going to give this to the Russians. We're not going to tell the Russians where it is, because people were saying, oh, we need to know all this sort of stuff. And I said, make sure you get, if that's your position, make sure you identify exactly which factories the legacy programs are going on, exactly which scientists are working on it, their phone numbers, their addresses, so Putin can find them very quickly. And that's the whole thing. You're not going to expose these programs. So they basically don't care. And that's what Walker said to us as we went through. He said, why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? And then he said, why should we satisfy the rules? And why should we change the rules and regulations? He said, you're just curious. Admit it. You're just curious. And then he said something that nobody's ever answered the question. I've asked it to a lot of people. So when you figure it out, when the government admits that it's real, when the dog catches the car, what are you going to do? And the answer is nobody's going to do anything. It's just curiosity. That's all people, they just want to know. They have no intention of, oh, I'm going to, do this or that, or it's going to do this. It's just basically curiosity. We want to know what the government's got. It's sort of like we're in a situation where we've got everything. We've got the house, the 2 cars, the kids have been through college, and we go on a trip once a year to Mexico and for the winter and all this kind of stuff. And now we need something else. So let's get some, hey, let's go for a skywatch. Let's get some spirituality. Let's get some, it's like entertainment for people. In 100 years ago, people used to do the entertainment. They used to go to seances and try to talk to dead people. Now we do skywatches and what are the aliens doing? And, can we see something? Oh, I saw something. What do you see? Is there any reports and stuff like that? And that's basically what Walker said. Admit it. You're just curious. Why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? So I think we're in a way worse position where we were before, because this is the law. You can't change the law. It basically has given all the power to the contractors, and they basically are working on it. And the other thing that people forget is, and this has been said, I said it for years, and now you're hearing high-level people say this, like Jim Semivan. He said, there does not appear to be any there. People say we just got to put the dots together. I'm not sure there's any dots to put together. And that's the whole idea, that the government really doesn't know. We think, oh, they got these crafts and they're flying them around and stuff. And in reality, they may not have anything. They can't even, I was even listening to Whitley Strieber talking about this metal that was all 83 layers. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about, because he had a piece of it. And he had the lab that in the university was looking at it. And he said, I didn't realize this before. He said, like, it was bismuth magnesium and these very thin layers, but there was nothing between the layers that was binding the layers together. He said, there's no glue, there's nothing. He said there was no way that they could tell how did these layers get bound together and layered like this. And that's the whole thing. We think, well, we've got this sort of figured out, and no. And that's what the contractors are saying is we're not going to give it to the Russians. We don't have to start another DARPA thing again. We want this high security, because that we know this already. The highest level security clearances are given to weapon stuff. That's the highest level stuff, because that's the stuff that will sort of end your country if you get another country developing some sort of weapon. Like the Russians have this what do they call it, the Poseidon tsunami missile, where they can detonate it off the coast of Louisiana and send a 1,500-foot radioactive wave right over Louisiana and take out Louisiana and leave it completely contaminated. That's what the military is looking at, is these things. What's the leading edge? How can we stop them from getting their stuff? And meanwhile, we're building new series of nuclear weapons and stuff like that. And the military has all the power. They have all the money. And Eisenhower sort of summed up in his last speech. He said, beware the military industrial complex. And what you've got now is even worse than that, because in the original speech, it said, beware the military industrial congressional complex. Yep. And they took congressional out of the speech not to offend Congress. But what you've got now is you've got a situation where everybody's got their hand in the cookie jar, everybody's making money, and once everybody's in there, you're not going to change that loop. How do you turn it when all the senators and congressmen are getting money out of contractors, where you can actually just go and buy? It's very simple for somebody who's got a company to go and buy, as they did with the Supreme Court justice, go buy him a motorhome. It's like $250,000. If you're a billionaire, what difference does that make? If your contract that you're going to win is going to get you tens of billions of dollars to do this. So it's very easy. They know where to put the money now. They know how to influence the people. and nobody's voting against it. If you got 10,000 people in your district working for Boeing, you're not going to vote against Boeing or Lockheed Skunk Works. So we've got this situation where everybody's compromised. The guys with the money are the military people, and we'd like to have this, and it'd be very nice or whatever. But basically, they just say, "Get lost, just shut up and pay your taxes. We'll take care. We're here to defend you, to save the world, and just leave it alone and let us run the show here." And that's what Walker told us. Why should we change the rules?
Well said, Grant. And I couldn't think of anybody else to come on this show to discuss this. I really wouldn't even want to talk about it, really, because and I don't even want to talk about this disclosure nonsense too much, just a little bit. And then I want to jump into your, what's really going on with your more recent work with consciousness and things like that. But
this is what people are really interested in now. There's people.
It is. I know. And here's you just talking about, like, how can we fix for something like that? It's very easy. And first off, you gotta limit the term. You can't have these career politicians that some of them damn near been in since the Kennedy years, and then you have to audit what they make, their net value, before they go into office. And then they can't go into a net value of, let's say, $500,000 and then come out $30 million. You can't do that. No. How did that happen? How did you do that becoming a politician? No, you have to limit things like that, and maybe they'll keep the crooked ones from getting out of DC. But
the problem with that is that they're the ones that are going to make the new laws, and they're not going to make laws that are going to affect their position. You got a bunch of crooks, or whatever you want to call them, that control the whole thing, and nobody wants to move. Like you got people voting strictly on party line. Like, you're gone if you vote against something that the House leader or the Senate leader says. That's it. They primary you. That's what Burchett was talking about when he came out against the UFO thing, and he was fighting against what's his name, the Mark guy from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he said they're going to primary him because he was pushing the UFO thing and trying to shut down the contractors on the UFO thing. The head of the Armed Services Committee was looking around in his district to find someone to run against him to get him out. And this is the whole thing. Everybody's so scared. Everybody's just doing, standing in the background and quietly whining and complaining. But you need all these votes, and it's so hard to change. The system is so not corrupt, but it's just so embedded in a situation where one or two guys are making the call, and where one or two guys can come up the works. I mean, if you can shut down the UFO program with two guys shutting down, you got 535 members in the House and Senate, and two guys shut it down. I mean, that's tremendous power. How do you stop that? These guys and the way it's being played now, politics is not like, let's do the best thing. Let's sit down, let's compromise, whatever. It's ends justifies the means. Who cares? It's like the Houston Astros. We steal the signals, man. We just steal the signals, and we win the World Series, and then we apologize.
I can't stand Astros, Grant.
But that's how it works.
But yeah, go ahead.
That's what's learned now is the end justifies the means. It really doesn't matter if you win, you make the rules, and so you use every little trick in the book that you can. And people, the voting of the people really doesn't matter anymore. It's these guys behind the scenes, gerrymandering and lawyers and accountants and stuff like that. And you're just up against this massive power that has sort of built itself into this empire that the little guy on the street that's voting has the ideas, but it's almost like it all has to fall apart, where it all sort of like there's a massive, whatever, civil war, or it all collapses for this to be changed. That's the idea that God created pain for a reason. There's really no pain, that people are still doing this, and the system is still sort of holding. But I agree with you. I mean, you need some changes in how
I think the system is corrupt, though, Grant. I think the system is corrupt. You can't move forward. You can't solve new ideas with the same corrupt leaders that started the problem. But while we're still on this discussion, I don't see, this didn't budge me. with News Nation talking about it and everybody else talking about the ARO report, and they quoted that the report said sightings usually just, quote, ordinary objects. Me, I'm a conspiracy guy. My first love is UFOs, getting the truth out with, the paranormal things. Like, that's my first love. That's kind of what got me into it. But I'm a conspiracy guy. I talk about everything, conspiracies, ancient mysteries, paranormal, supernatural. But I'm pretty much the no holds barred, the no holds barred of coast to coast. You say what the hell you want to say. I'm not going to limit your speech. But that said, like, I don't trust the government. I don't trust them. Yes, there's good guys. I used to be a part of the government. I was military police. I was Army military police. Did that for a while. But the thing is, all it takes is a few bad apples to corrupt the system. And whenever a lot of these same politicians that a lot of the blueprint is the same damn blueprint that I see back from the Kennedy days, and it's kind of the same thing. And whenever you have, see, I said last year, whenever David Grush and everybody else come forward and everybody's so happy about all these congressional hearings, it's good. It's good to get noticed and, things like that. But I don't trust these guys. I'm not saying that some good may not come out, but I always had that skeptical mind that, because I've studied conspiracies, I have a lot of conspiracy podcasts on here. And then I'm not saying they're all, everyone's true, but not all of them are false. Like, some obviously happened with 9/11. Some have, JFK, but conspiracies happen. And these same guys that are in Washington, D.C., they're part of the whole down, the deep state, the shadow government, whatever you want to call them. There's been different names over the years, but there's still a corruption there. And until the system gets changed, nothing will change. And we won't get what they say full disclosure is. Nothing will ever truly change, because these same guys that's been controlling everything. Yes, I know they use these, it's not technically that they use other organizations, NGOs and things like that. These other corporations to do the dirty work so that the dirty shit doesn't rain on the government's hands. I understand that. But nothing will truly change until the whole system changes. But how do you do that? You know what I mean? Without, like, just tearing down the nation by itself, because, the economy will crash. My head's spinning because I saw this happening, and everybody's so mad because of they wanted more. They thought they had faith that that Washington, D.C. and the government was going to bring disclosure and all this. I don't see it. And even if they do, my skeptical mind is always going to think that, what's the next alternative motive? You know what I mean? Is it a threat card? Are they trying to sell us this? I'm always skeptical. You have to remain skeptical. Do I want, like, these technologies to be disclosed, whatever there is? Yes. Do I think that they possibly have the cure for cancers? And I think they do. I do. That's just my theory, my take, but I think they got a lot of technologies behind the scenes, maybe not under the government's hands, maybe under these corporations' hands, but you have to remain skeptical. And because this didn't faze me at all, Grant. And just like you said, so many people are just getting hysterical over this. I saw this. I said last year, saw in several interviews, even with Nick Pope, I don't trust these guys at all. What's your take on that, Grant?
Well, you have to define who these guys are. Like, everybody's always talking about they, and I was like, who's they? Who's the government? And you have to understand how the government works. Basically, what you have is a situation where you have a bunch of billionaires who are running the show now.
Yeah.
You're not going to go up against a billionaire who can buy a Supreme Court justice.
The billionaires that own these corporations, right? Some of them.
Yeah, well, they've got everything tied together. All this stuff is a front for these guys that are basically running the show. So we were sort of blaming the government, and the government can do whatever. I mean, whoever it is, the Senate House leaders, or the well-intentioned, Schumer had a well-intentioned to get this thing out, and it just got blocked. It's like they basically said, nope, it's not going through. We're shutting it down because these two guys don't like it. That's where you get this situation where the whole system is sort of broken in terms of, how do you change this? How do you actually get a vote? I mean, you have the House who basically didn't do anything for the last year, and they're sitting there and fighting about this and fighting about that.
To cut you off real quick, Grant, I don't mean to cut you off. It's not that I don't trust everybody, but it's the system. You know what I mean? All
Yeah,
it takes is a few bad apples, man.
it's the idea that you follow the money. $900 billion defense budget. They're running the show. These are guys. I mean, and you talk about cure to cancer. My friend has been in the hospital. The guy was driving the car when we had the first UFO sighting back in 1975. Now it has a stroke. He's 4 months in the hospital. I was in his room, and the doctor comes in to talk to the woman next to him, and he says, "You got a year and a half to live." She says, "That's it." And then he said, "Yeah, we got this drug, and but it's $12,000 a year, and insurance doesn't cover it."
That's
And
bullshit,
that's the
dude.
whole deal. What's that?
That's bullshit, man.
But that's the whole
you know
thing.
what I
So
mean?
these are the guys that are running the show. It's the guys that are making the money. You have to follow the money. That's where the power is. And the little guy, in the Congress or the Senate who has a good idea, like Burchett says, "Okay, just put it on the table." And then he gets primary. They say, "Okay, we're getting you out. We're gonna kill you. You're not even gonna win the primary. You're out of." And you see them running people out of Congress now who have ideas that are opposed to the people that have the power. And the whole UFO thing is basically comes down to security. And what Walker said, but he's making a point, is the fact that if you put the material out, it's like I would say it's like a game of cards, playing cards. It's a game of bluffing between the Chinese, the Russians, and the Americans. Who puts the stuff on the table first? Here's what we know about UFOs. Here's everything, and here's all the medals and stuff like this. And Chinese and the Russians say, "Thank you very much," and because they're working on it as well.
Yeah.
And they, as I said, they have these intentions of these weapons where they're going to take out they got these 40 nuclear weapons that can basically take out every city on the coast of the United States and leave it totally radioactive. And they're playing the same thing. The ends justifies the means. Nobody really cares. It's the game is winning. It's like, how do we win? And so we need some good lawyers. We need some stuff. Is there some loopholes we can run through? Same as you get billionaires. I mean, Ray Hernandez, who was the Free Foundation, he was an IRS lawyer, and he said when he was a trust lawyer, and he said unless you had $5 million in your account, he would never see it. But he did trust accounts for people who died and stuff like that. And he said, I can guarantee you, none of the billionaires pay taxes, none of them. And that this is like a top IRS lawyer. But that's the thing is, and how do you take that power back out of their hands? They have the power, they have the money. They can put up millions and millions and millions of dollars. If you're going to run in Congress, you're going to go and run in Louisiana for Congress. Do you think you're going to go up against them if they suddenly decide that you're out and they're going to put up $7 million to run ads against you? That's the whole thing. Is these guys, the power is in the money at the top of the thing. And the little guy, we have these ideas that sort of float around, and we have these whistleblowers that sort of have come forward. I've known a lot of these high level guys like Putoff and guys like that, and George Knapp and all these guys. And Gresh, I heard about Gresh about a year before he went public, and the Canadians loved him. They had gotten stuff from him. But again, the thing is, how do these guys move the system? They're in the same boat as you and I. Is you can come forward and they'll destroy your life. And go after you and pull your security clearance and stuff like that. So you have these people scared. And it's just now the situation they've got now is you put the thing back under. In fact, Ron Pandolfi, I've chased the president around for many years, and I stopped sort of doing it because it's kind of useless. And I chased around the high CIA people. So Kit Green, Ron Pandolfi, Art Lundahl, Jim Semivan. I always said, you listen to these guys because they're going to say stuff that makes some sense. And Ron Pandolfi said a year ago, before this, almost to the day, a year before this report was put out, he said, it's time to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's exactly what happened. And we actually, my friend contacted him, say, hey, you said that. Is that what you meant? And that's the whole thing is, and Ron Pandolfi said, I'm the guy with the keys. He said, when a congressman or senator wants to know about this stuff, I tell him, hey, I got the keys. I can let you have the keys. But I'll just let you know that when you go in there, this could be very risky, and you can get in a lot of trouble. And you can either go in, you can take the chance and go in there, or you can let me hold the keys. And he said, everybody lets me hold the keys. And that's the whole deal. Is like they have this thing where even congressmen and senators are afraid to step up, because you're up against these powers of huge amounts of money, and they are not about to let go. But as I said, still came down to voting. We came so close. People don't realize. I said, if there had been 6 more Democrats in the House, all the stuff would have gone through. You would have had disclosure. 2 guys blocked the whole thing, and now it's all down the tube, and now it's all written into law. And I don't see how unless unless the Democrats get the House back and they keep the Senate and stuff, and then Schumer puts the amendment back in again. But right now, two guys, that's the problem. You got two guys who can block the entire bill and say, nope, we're blocking it. And then it's over. It's like you try to get what you can out of it. And it's the system has been built that way, and the system is getting worse. It's coming down to this money where business, like now you've got the law. Before 20 years ago, you didn't have the law where multi-billionaires could put money into these black things to finance people. Before, you could only put in so much money if you're a billionaire. Now the corporations can put whatever money they want in to these things to fund people, and you don't even know where the money's coming from, and it's billions of dollars going in there. How do you stop that? I mean, it's just impossible. That and for them, what's their bottom line? The bottom line is the money. That if you're, it's the same thing with people that I've said are in the UFO scene, that are, scientists who are in this cosmic club or whatever they want to call it, invisible college or whatever. They're doing the same thing. They're sitting in the background and they're not talking because these patents are worth millions of dollars. I mean, especially I heard the ones with the alien body stuff with the DNA and all that kind of stuff. That's huge. Everybody's trying to get a hold of that. You're trying to patent all this stuff. If you can figure out how that metal is layered, that's worth billions of dollars in a patent. So they're going to sit back and nobody's going to talk. And bottom line is money. It's just,
greed and ego.
The three laws in the United States is number one is money, number two is money, and number three is money. And that's how it works. And if you're the little guy, you got these ideas, the people have to sort of step up. But what you have in the UFO situation is that probably you, me, and 3% of the other people who really care, and everybody else is like, yeah, well, it's like, oh, that's not UFOs. Nobody. It's interesting. You can watch, Skinwalker Ranch show or watch a movie or whatever, but nobody's really that interested. They're interested in paying their bills, getting their kid to school, getting them to soccer practice or whatever like that. We just, it's sort of falling apart. But the warning was given to us by Eisenhower, and he saw it coming. Beware the military-industrial complex. A $900 billion defense budget. You're not going to turn that around very quickly. They've got all the power, all the money, and they got all the lawyers and they got all the accountants, and they know how the system is played, and they will crush you if you try to step up and go up against them.
So last year, let's move forward a little bit. Last year, after I came home from I don't think I showed you this. You've talked about, we're about to get into the more what we think is really going on with, non-human intelligence or consciousness or whatever these things are. You've talked about orbs. But last year when I came home from the Ozark UFO conference, it was like a week later. See if I can find the first clip I'm going to show you. Let me see here. I have security footage at my home. I have 2 cameras on the front side.
Yeah.
And this is the first clip. Let me see. Screen share. Boom. This is the first one. This is the first clip. But first off, my wife got a notification. Bugs do not set off the motion detector. Bugs do not set off the motion detector, Grant. My wife was getting, because you'll see bugs fly by all the time. So whatever it was, it set off the motion detector. My wife was getting ready for work. I was already at work, I believe. And my wife, it was, I don't know, real early in the morning. My wife was getting ready for work, and she got a notification. You're going to see this one coming from the top right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good one.
And then you'll see a bug fly by. Boom. Right there. Those things do all the time. They don't set off the motion detector.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. And then about a week later, something like that, or a couple of days later, we had another one. So you're going to see this one from the bottom right, and then I'm going to show you the next clip. It goes to the other camera on the side of the house. It's one continuous motion. She got a notification first of that camera you just saw above the garage, and then another notification from the same object from the other camera. Yeah. Show you the first one. This one's going to appear from the bottom right, I believe. Yep.
Holy cow.
Self motion detector again.
That's regular speed?
Yes.
Wow.
Nothing's been tampered or edited at all.
No.
And then this object that you see right there, orb, then it's going to the other where it's kind of showing on the side of the house where the front door is. It's about to appear on that one. So it's one continuous motion from this camera to the other camera that I'm about to show you. You see, show you the next one. This, so that one you just saw comes to the side of the house, or where the front door is. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty significant if you got it on two different cameras.
That one you just saw, I just showed, is this one right here.
That's unique. Wow.
So, and none of that's been edited or nothing. And my wife has the higher quality on her phone. And I don't have nothing to try to prove. You know what I mean? Like, I could show that the time, she still has it, the time frame and all that, but either take my word for it, whatever, there's a lot of credible videos out there like that. But what do you think's going on with like orbs and things? What do you actually think's going on? I've heard crazy things that some orbs are actually consciousness, that loved ones, or it could be these entities. It's just so many theories out there. And I know you've talked about this and consciousness for the past several years, and your work's been really remarkable on that. But what do you think's going on, Grant?
Okay, that's a unique orb that you have there, because usually there's like small ones and they're moving kind of fast, and they're this one's almost like it gives me the sense of being alive, almost like it's
intelligence behind it.
Intelligence, but it sort of wants to present that, because I haven't usually they don't show that sort of like yours is like almost like a cell. It's sort of like it's got the shape, but it's sort of moving. One of the things I looked in, and you have the thing where it could be relatives or beings in stuff. I think it can be a lot of stuff, and what's happening is that I think we manifest a lot of stuff that you if you're interested in it, you'll start having experiences. People will always report this, or once you have a near-death experience, suddenly all this other stuff starts happening. That it may be the phenomena, which may be us. We are part of what we're looking at. That we are helping to generate these stories with real events that keep us dragged into this thing. So it's around you. I don't know if you have other experiences. Probably you're starting to have this kind of stuff. That it's not a random sort. We always have this idea that there's us and then there's something out there. And I think what you've always got to realize is that we are part of the experience that we're engaging. So and the other thing it may be is, I call it the theory of wow. Bob Bigelow, I don't know if you know this. Bob Bigelow did an investigation on orbs. Now, Bob Bigelow, they did 100 studies for OSAP, 2008 to 2010. And one of them was the orb study. Now, I'd like to see what they had come up with, because Bob Bigelow seemed to know something about orbs. This phenomena was producing stuff. And he talked about the fact that he could actually produce orbs with cameras, and he would know what was going to be on the film. And he told the story, I don't know if you know this, that the guards at Skinwalker Ranch had ordinary dogs. They were told to walk the property with these ordinary, not trained dogs, police dogs or anything like that, just ordinary dogs. And they were to walk around the property. And if the dog were to go into a surrender position, they were to immediately pull out the digital camera and start photographing. Or if they felt something cold or something weird, or if the dog went into surrender position, immediately pull out the camera and start photographing. And these guys said, "This is what the hell is this guy wants to do this?" And they would show them the photographs of the orbs, and they said, "That's dust and stuff like that." But they were told they had to do this, and they were doing this. And then at the same time, if there's something like this happened, they were to take a urine sample, and they took it back. They would come back to Vegas every 2 weeks, and they would give it to the OSAP people. And now there's a report on orbs that was done for OSAP. But again, it's the whole idea is that they put out the money, and it's still under classification, and you got to try to drag this stuff out. And I think there's going to be some answers there. Orbs are part of the theory of wow. It's just all these weird things happening where they're just appearing and they're getting you going. They're sort of raising the zeitgeist. So slowly they do these things like UFO sightings. So a UFO flies along like mine 1975. The thing flies by, and the second night it comes right at me and then flies away. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, what's it doing? And that's the whole thing. What it's not doing anything. Same as yours going past the house. What's it doing? Not doing anything. It's just flying by. It's flying by your camera. And it may be flying by your camera for a reason because it wants you to go, holy shit, what's going on here? And it gets you dragged down. And that's what they do. It's because what we do is we go into a foreign country and we say, we're here to bring you freedom, democracy, Jesus, and McDonald's. And they go, get the hell out of here. But the phenomena is doing the other thing. They're sort of dragging you along. They're making you think it out and what's going on. And the whole how science advances is in awe and curiosity. If there's no awe, there's no curiosity, there's no science, because that's what gets you. We're like, I want to do this experiment. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And that's like the layered material. So when they see these layered pieces, 83 layers of this material that has no binding between it, and they try to figure out it shouldn't bind. How does it stick together? Then they start doing experiments. So that's what it's doing, and that's where even metal is the same thing. People say, "Oh, the metal is part of a flying saucer." I say, "Come on, give your head a shake. You think it flew 1,000 light years over here and then pieces started falling off the damn thing? No, it's doing this on purpose. It's giving you this layered piece of metal where everybody goes, what the hell is going on? How do they do that?" Same as you show it to me, you show it to other people. Hey, look at this photograph. What do you think? And it's people are going, what's going on? And everybody generally, and instead of coming in and telling people what you're going to do to them, it's sort of you and all your friends go, wow, maybe the world is a weird place. Maybe, and that's what they're trying to get you to say is, hey, it's not what you think it is. And then you start exploring and you try to figure out, and the consciousness rises as we all figure it out. Like crop circles. Why do you leave crop circles in the field? Like, what's this about? It's to get you to go, I don't know who the hell made that, but that is the weirdest thing. And then you're looking for the next one, you're looking for the next one, and people are exchanging photographs. And that's what they're doing. They're changing the zeitgeist. They're making us realize the world is not a physical, random, meaningless place that we thought it was. That there's just this out here, this out there. And so that is what your orb thing looks like. It's this idea where it's like, hey, look at this. And it just flies by, and it knows that you're interested in, and in a way you could be manifesting this because you have these thoughts and you attract this kind of stuff that generates up that you'll see all the time. I asked for abductions. I asked Devon Smith one time. I said, Devon, you do all these regressions of these abductee people. How many of them have had paranormal phenomena around them? She went, she starts laughing. She goes, like 99%. It's like everybody. And that's the whole thing is, and people get dragged down. And I think that's what they're doing because it started in 1947. And you can see piles of examples of crashes, of pieces falling, of apportations where coins appear in the middle of the floor and in the middle of the bathtub and stuff like that. It's just this really weird stuff, or Jacques Vallée calls it absurd. The whole thing is totally absurd. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what they want, because that's what gets the curiosity going. And if you had all the answers, you wouldn't do any. If you thought you had all the answers, you wouldn't do anything. You'd figure this is the way it works. And you still have a lot of the world that believes now this is all. No, the world is just a simple straight world. You die, you go to heaven or hell or whatever their interpretation is. This is giving us a different view of the world, that it's not what you think it is, and we are gradually all just moving up into this situation where we realize this.
And that second orb that I showed you that started from the garage that went to the other camera, it shows that door, and to the right of the door is where it kind of was going is my daughter's room. And at the time of that video, she was 4 months old.
Okay.
So it makes you wonder, like, and we've had these cameras, the same cameras, the motion detectors, and we've never seen an orb, it just makes you wonder if something was. We've had a lot of deaths in the past several years before my daughter was born. It just makes you wonder if there's a connection. It'd be nice if there was, but
whoever it is or whatever it is trying to get your attention, especially if it goes on two different cameras. I mean, that's one of the better orb videos I've ever seen. because a lot of it's just, one thing, but it comes on two cameras and it's moving so slow. I've never seen one move slow like that. It's almost like it's
You can see the bugs. You can see the bugs, like
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
can see them. That happens all the time, and they do not set off. Only thing that set off motion detectors are people walking the street, cars going by. That's
yeah,
basically it. It's got a pretty good motion detector.
yeah. That's one of the better orb videos I've ever seen. I mean, in terms, especially on two cameras, that's pretty rare. Then it's really showing off. It's like, hey, it's almost like they up the ante all the time. They do this and then they stop it. Like they did the cattle mutilations, then they stopped the cattle mutilations. They did the crop circles, and then they do something else, and they just keep changing the thing, and it seems to get more bizarre as we go along, and they just keep upping the ante, and that may be the way disclosure comes, is that they're going to disclose that there's just going to be so much weird stuff happening that the population is just going to accept that this is real, and it really doesn't matter what the government, because everybody knows the government's, whatever you want to call the government, or the panel is lying, that they're covering this up, and that's what they're doing. They're not, they'll play the game. They're not lying, but they're playing the game where, oh, it could be this, it's probably this. They're not saying no, but that's what they've done all along with Condon and with Robertson panel or whatever. Is as Ron Pendelphi said, put the toothpaste back in the tube, and to get people back to normal, because it was violating security clearances, and people, you had people threatening to come out, whistleblowers and stuff like that, and they're just basically getting things back under control. And their view of the whole thing is that they're here to win the war against Russia or China or whoever the enemy is, and they'll be damned if someone's going to come in and get their money. Because if it gets solved, then all the money that they've got for, why are you building jet fighters then? I mean, if we've got flying saucers, what the hell? It's like it all sort of collapses. They got this industry where everybody's making piles of money, and my son was even telling, my son was a pilot. He doesn't fly, but he's got his pilot's license and stuff. He was telling me about there's a story about a guy from Boeing who started talking about how Boeing was cutting corners. He ends up dead in his car, and you start hearing these things, and this is the whole thing. So if there's a pile of money involved, and
Are you talking about the recent one, the recent death?
It must have been recent. My son just told me about it yesterday. He was talking.
Yes. I drew a blank, but yeah, because Boeing's been having a lot of these problems with their airplanes, and then there was a worker that they had was coming forward, and I don't know if he died. I think he did. Yes, he died.
Yeah, in his car or some weird thing. Yeah,
but
so that's the thing, is if it's worth billions and billions of dollars. I mean, you even got a situation today where, I mean, if you got billions of dollars, you got so many lawyers, they're never going to catch you for anything. You can just keep dragging things out and just keep going. That the power has shifted, and everybody's playing to win. It's like sports. It's like your team versus my team. And, if we do, something a little bit dirty, well, or your team's the dirty guys and our team's the good guys. And we have this idea of winning is all that matters. And you try to, steal the signals or figure out what the other team's going to do and stuff like that. That's what it's about. That's how the world has become, is this game of winning at all cost.
What if both teams are owned by the same owner, though? Do you think that's possible? Do you think both sides, this infighting and all that? What if, there, who is they? You know what I mean? Yes, a lot of these billionaires, but maybe both sides answer to the same, for lack of better,
But that's what Eisenhower warned: beware of the military-industrial congressional complex. So if you got the military, the government, and the Congress all in the game, and they're all making money from it, who's going to bail out? Who's going to say, oh, okay, we should stop this? Everybody's making money, everybody's getting jobs, and it's like Walker said, nobody, this is the other thing he said to us, it's been since 1947, nobody's blown up the world yet, leave it alone. That's what he said. That's what he told us. Mm-hmm. And this is a guy who knew what was going on. He knew all the players. He knew exactly what it was. But he was the head of the Institute for Defense Analysis, which is the military think tank that controls all the weapons. And he was the executive secretary of the Research and Development Board in 1950. That was the head of the weapon development programs. And that's the way they see it. It's like there's a an enemy under every rock, and we've got to get this. But we're making money, so everything's okay. and we haven't blown up the world. So let's just keep this thing going. And if you want to step out, you have this situation now. If you want to step out and oppose, whether you're a congressman who wants to bolt from your party or whether you're a whistleblower or whatever, they can, make it terribly tough on you, threatening messages, SWAT your house, all this sort of stuff. It's turned into a different world where winning is all that matters.
Do you want to help support Beyond Forbidden and receive extra content that's not seen anywhere else? By becoming a patron, a few things you will receive are the full-length 90-minute or 120-minute podcast episode. Members will also receive a private link to the video podcast and will only be exclusive to Patreon members. In-person, face-to-face interviews with some of the most well-known, respected researchers. Behind-the-scenes footage of interviews not seen anywhere else. And that's just a few perks. So what do you have to lose? Cut out one brain-rotting, overly processed Happy Meal a month that doesn't do anything beneficial for your mind, body, and spirit, and become a Patreon for just $5.